Good morning and welcome back to News and Views with me, Salalo Makwidiri. This morning we turn our focus to a story shaping U.S.-Africa relations. Outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden's now happened visit to Angola. It looks looking like a significant moment, not just because this visit fulfills almost a 24-month-old promise made during the 2022 U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, but because it signals the growing importance of Angola as a key U.S. partner in Africa, from overcoming the Cold War's divisive legacy to embracing innovative projects like the Lupito Corridor. And the question we are asking is, why now? Why did the outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden see it fit to visit Angola, and what kind of message is it sending when it comes to U.S.-Africa relations as a whole? And joining us to unpack this is Dr. Oscar van Heerden. He's a senior research fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. van Heerden is an expert in African diplomacy with deep insights into the continent's evolving global partnerships. So join the conversation on WhatsApp at 0617660355 or tweet us using the hashtag news and views, and we can have the conversation regarding that. U.S. and Africa relations, President Joe Biden's visit to Angola. What do you think it signals? What do you think it signifies to you? And we'll be joined in a bit by Dr. van Heerden, who's joining us via our streaming platform. Dr. van Heerden, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure chatting to you.
Good morning, Salah, and good morning to your viewers.
I think, Doc, let's start with the historical context. The U.S.-Angola relationship has been, fraught with complexities, particularly during the Cold War. How significant is this visit in addressing that legacy? That's one. And number two, why now from the U.S. president, well, the outgoing U.S. president now, Joe Biden? Why now? Why is it so significant to visit an African country?
Yeah, look, I think that historically, as you know, South Africa, Angola, Mozambique, most of Southern Africa actually, during the Cold War, made very particular choices in terms of who they got into bed with. And for the most part, it was not with the United States of America. It was with Russia, then the Soviet Union, and so on and so forth. So I think it is significant. But I also do think that the why now is really a legacy issue. I don't think it is about anything else but the fact that Joe Biden, in his entire 4-year term, has not visited the continent and had to be seen to at least make a turn in Africa before he exits in the next 6 weeks. So I think that the timing is all about legacy, but of course the significance is the fact that the United States is wanting to further trade relations with Angola.
And I think, in the opening, you also made a really important point, the fact that, Angola has historically been aligned with Moscow, and also very heavily reliant on China for infrastructure financing. How does Biden's visit reflect the U.S. strategy to counter China's influence in Africa? And could we see, this kind of strategy being taken over by the, Trump 2.0 administration, who are said to be coming in?
Well, look, two things there. The one is that indeed America is in a very precarious position with regards to the Belt and Road initiative of China. You would know, Silo, that China has made some significant infrastructure investments within the continent. In a number of countries, harbors have been built, bridges, railways, and so forth. And I think this is an attempt by the United States to say that they can also try and do something in terms of infrastructure. I would caution that it's a little too late, because the truth of the matter is that for the most part, given our colonial history in Africa, we were in bed with the Europeans and with the Americans, and they did very little in terms of huge, massive infrastructure development and lifting the continent out of only being a resource continent. And so I think it's a little too late. But it is an attempt by the Americans to begin to challenge the Belt and Road initiative of Xi Jinping's government in China. On the second part, with regards to Trump, president elect of the United States, this is the big question. These promises and agreements that Biden has made with the Angolan government is so close to him exiting. And the question then is, will the Trump administration actually honor some of these agreements? Usually, as you know, with an incoming president, those last minute arrangements and agreements just before the outgoing administration leaves is usually put under the scrutiny and under the spotlight to just check whether the incumbents should actually honor those things. So that's a big question.
And one thing that is really interesting, for this visit is the Lobito Corridor project, which is currently being compared to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is investing huge amounts of money on the continent, and making sure that infrastructure is being built. Do you think, when it comes to the US, do you think this is an alternative, the Lobito corridor, or is just another form of neo colonialism under a different name, not necessarily there for Africa, as you mentioned? We've tried to align ourselves as a continent to the US and the West for such a long time, but there hasn't been any, real tangible impact that they've had on the continent.
Look, I mean, Africa finds itself in a very good position. It's not always the case, but because of decades and decades of, as I said, being reliant on the West, European countries and North America, and having very little to show for it, with China coming into the continent in a big way, and in a very material way, tangible way. I think that the West is beginning to realize that the malarkey of do things the way we want and you'll be like us is wearing thin for the Africans. And the Africans have decided that we've been dancing according to your tune, Washington consensus, for a very long time. We have very little to show for it. In a short space of time, we've been dancing with China, and we are not ignorant to the fact that China can be a neo-colonial power, but at least it's done on different terms of references, as well as the fact that we see tangible change in terms of harbors, in terms of bridges, in terms of railway lines, and so forth. So America and the Europeans will have to go a very far way to compete with the Belt and Road of China. And Africa and African countries such as Angola needs to position themselves in such a way that they can get the best of both worlds, if at all possible.
And just in closing, I know we don't have a crystal ball to look at, but from your own opinion, looking at how Donald Trump was campaigning and some of the things that he said, with America now starting to be more inward looking. We've heard, what he said about the BRICS countries and how they're going to be 100% tariffs because of this new BRICS currency that is supposedly going to be formed. Just from your future outlook, looking into your crystal ball, US Africa relations, where do you think they're going in this new administration, Trump administration?
I think Trump, and the reason why Trump's campaign was about America first, make America great again, inward looking, protecting of jobs, implementing tariffs and sanctions. It's all because the United States of America is a waning empire. It is beginning to lose its dominance in the world. And unfortunately, instead of looking at a carrot approach and using soft power and bringing countries closer to America and what America's values stand for, they've opted to use the stick and threaten people and threaten sanctions and weaponizing the dollar. And unfortunately, the Trump administration is going to intensify that kind of confrontational approach to diplomacy. And so we are in for stormy waters. I think when Trump comes to the G20 next year in South Africa, he's coming with an ultimatum. You're either with us or you are against us. So the future is not looking very bright.
And I think we're going to leave it on that note, Dr. Van Heerden. Thank you so much for joining us and unpacking this significant, to some extent, visit to Africa by outgoing US President Biden. I'm sure we'll be catching up with you in the not so distant future. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of this thought-provoking discussion on President Biden's historic visit to Angola, but most importantly, its implications for Africa. And as we reflect on the promises and challenges of these international engagements, it's clear that Africa's destiny must be shaped by its own leaders. People and their leaders should have a similar vision. The continent, I think, holds immense potential. And while global partnerships can offer opportunities, we've seen it a few times, particularly with our Asian counterparts, it's vital that these relationships serve Africa's long-term interests and not just the agendas of external powers. So, yeah, thank you for joining us on News and Views. Stay tuned for more in-depth conversations. And remember, the power to shape Africa's future lies in our hands. Let's continue the conversation on social media. You can give us a call on 01-766-0355. That's our WhatsApp line. You can send us a voice note there or a message, and you can tell us what you think. Should Africa align itself with the West or with the East? China and Russia, or America and the rest of Europe? Is that where our friends are? What do you think? Give us a call, 011-680-0355, or you can send us a WhatsApp on 061-766-0355. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues after this.